What up, though, everybody? And if you're from Detroit, you already know what it is. As the beautiful Miss Marty Bell did in the interview that we did with her earlier today, that is going to be dropping tomorrow on our YouTube and our Facebook. Make sure you check it out. Yes, that's Marty Bell from NWA. That's Marty Bell from Shine and all the great places you can see her. Marty Bell was a great interview. I can't wait for you guys to check that out. But Corey, we've got a busy weekend when it comes to the world of MMA, and pro wrestling isn't going to be outdone. We've got to talk about Impact Rebellion and the big Impact AEW title unification match that's coming down the pike with Rich Swan versus Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers taking on Finn Juice from New Japan, along with this UFC 261 card. So how you feeling, brother, man?
And don't forget PFL, man. I'm
excited. I didn't. I got that on the Repetenda.
I know. You
Trust
do,
me. I got it in the brain.
That one's well worth noting for the people that may have missed their first return season to ESPN. That one's well worth noting. It's going to be on tomorrow, so don't miss that. But that being said, I'm doing good on this lovely Thursday, ready to wrap this week up, get one more day in the books, and get this fight week that we're about to start talking about on the road, man. I'm excited.
Well, where do you want to start first? Do you want to start UFC first? Well, we should probably start, since it's the thing that we got the least of. Let's start first with Impact Rebellion, because then we're going to be on an MMA overload. So, like I mentioned, Impact is coming to town. They're doing their thing this Sunday. They got their pay-per-view. You can get it on Fight TV. You can get it a bunch of different places. Let's talk a little bit about this card. So, as I mentioned when we were talking about in our open, you got the Impact World Title match. It's going to be for the Impact and AEW Championship between Rich Swan and the AEW champion, the cleaner, Kenny Omega. So this match is going to be very interesting. All betting money, I would say Kenny Omega is walking out with both titles. Then again, as we saw from Wednesday on AEW, when they were trying to cut their promo, Kingston and John Moxley are back up and running. So I wouldn't be, we haven't seen as much, get back for Impact on this, AEW Impact merger. I really think we could see, maybe Moxley and Kingston show up, and maybe Rich Swan pulls a fast one, but I don't know that I would bet any money on it. Nonetheless, it makes for an interesting show.
Well, I know myself. I know, like you've made the point multiple times. Basically every time this partnership gets brought up, the fact that Impact's getting a short end of the stick. But to me, from the outside in, it honestly seems like they're the ones getting the rub for their fighters. They might be losing in the matches and stuff like that, but they're at least getting their names out for their guys on a bigger platform. And that's one thing you definitely got to take into consideration, whether it's a win or a loss. The platform's the platform. And
so I agree.
Even though I feel like Impact from the outside in, this is all speculatory, I guess you could say on my part, but it seems like Impact had a good push about 10 years ago. And other than that, it seems like I don't really hear too much from them in the wrestling world, where it seems like your AEW, they're a lot more predominantly known. They have the bigger TV spot, I feel like. And you see all their stuff trending on Twitter every week and stuff like that. So in my eyes, I feel like that's what they're getting out of the partnership. They might not be winning belts or even matches as much, but they're definitely getting the platform for a lot of their guys.
So I agree with that. I mean, I think, it's definitely putting them on a higher, thing. Perfect example of that, another match that they've got on this card, you've got the Good Brothers, who, you got Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, who are coming off a WWE run against Finn Juice, Juice Robinson, who also was formerly of WWE, but he's been in Japan for quite a while, against the son of the Irishman, Dave Finlay. That's going to be a damn good match. But like I said, you've got Finjuice, who are signed with New Japan, are the Impact World Tag Team Champions. So I like all the cross promotion. I like to see what comes out of it. I mean, that's going to be a great way to segue as we come into the fight game of all these people talking about crossover fights and all those things. So I, for one, am definitely still looking forward to seeing what we're going to see at Impact Rebellion. If I'm picking one, betting money, I'm going with Kenny Omega, but I would not be surprised if Rich Swan can pull one out. If you guys are watching in the comments, are going to check any of that out, let us know. But as I said, there's going to be a lot going on in the fight game. Before we get to UFC 261, what are your thoughts on Anthony Showtime Pettis making his debut over there in the PFL?
If you're a Showtime fan, if you've followed any of his social medias or anything leading into this, he's done a lot of self-promotion, and it seems like he's doing a lot to build up his as Pat McAfee puts it, do it for the brand. He's doing, he's building up his own brand. And honestly, this is a really good spot for Anthony Pettis, I truly believe. I mean, he gets to essentially main card or main event more than likely, as long as he can continue to win throughout the 4 fights on his contract. Wins this, and that's an automatic $1 million payday, which I'm sure he was making good money in the UFC, but not quite $1 million over 4, I wouldn't imagine. And that's good, and that's not including his actual base pay for each fight itself. So all said and done, he might be making close to like 1.5, 1.75 or something. And for him, that's an awesome spot in the later spots of your career, I guess you could say. But he's still young, man. And that's one thing I feel like this pandemic is going to do for a lot of guys, especially people like him, Rory Mcdonald, another PFL athlete. Guys that are still in the prime of their career but have some miles on them. I feel like this pandemic may be able to turn back that odometer just a little bit for him. Or at least I'm hoping so. Because this PFL tournament, man, it really is exciting. Like I said in the start of the show, I had watched 2 years ago when they ran the first one when they moved it to ESPN, and it was genuinely entertaining. Even though you didn't really know most of the guys on the field, you got to know them throughout the course of the season, and you got to have like your fan favorites, your more fan friendly style guys, and so on and so forth. But it was genuinely entertaining, and it seems like they're only ramping it up even more this year. So I'm definitely excited for leading into it Friday.
I'm really excited to see what happens from a past guest of our show, the filthy one, Mr. Tom Lawler. I want to see what he does stepping back in the cage, because for me, I feel like Tom Lawler was slept on for so long in his run in the UFC. He's not going to be. Is he going to be fighting on this card? No, he's not fighting on this card. But I'm excited to see what comes next for him and where we're going to see him go. Another good fight on that card. You got Lance Palmer versus Bubba Jenkins. I think that's going to be that's going to be a great fight. I think Lance Palmer is going to get the dub on that one, but it's another fight that's definitely interesting and worth looking at. All right, Corey, we're in for UFC 261 this weekend, but before we get to the card, what are your thoughts on the fact that there just hasn't really seemed to be that much buzz, that much hype around this event?
So it seems like there's 2 kind of directions that the fans are heading in this one. Yes, I feel like it's not going to do the numbers that the first Jorge Usman fight did, because that fight garnered a lot of casual attention. And don't get me wrong, I feel like Masvidal still has that push, but I genuinely do feel like Kamaru took some of that. And as much as I personally am a huge fan of Kamaru Usman, I feel like a lot of the casuals aren't, especially with what he did in that fight against Jorge Masvidal. So I, the buy rate in my eyes is probably going to be lesser, and which is absolutely insane to me because realistically, I feel like you could take either of the two fights before uh, the main event, and those could be headliners for a pay per view, and everybody would love it. So I don't know what it is with this rematch being like the headliner, but I've noticed a lot of that in the MMA Twitter circles and such. But yeah, it's very surprising to me. It honestly is.
So here's the thing. When it comes to Usman versus Masvidal, I think Masvidal raises the needle for this fight more so because, again, with us being a pro wrestling show, it's something that we talk about all the time. A lot of the time, the guys that are most valuable are the ones who can talk you into the seats before the fights ever happen.
Yeah.
Masvidal has been able to use his upbringing and his upbringing and his rough come up to appeal to the fans. So to the fans, it's a dude who's come up from the scrubs, just like when Ngannou won the title a couple weeks ago from Stipe Miocic. That was one of the main things that people were talking about, was that they that he came up from living in his car just 7 years ago, and now the man's world champion. So I mean, I think that has a lot to do with it, but at the same time, you you have to remember, like in the case with Usman, Usman, come over here from a different country and all that as well. But again, styles make fights. Even if Masvidal might not be the most technically superior fighter all the time, people want to see him fight because he gets in there and bangs. And for the most part, up until his last performance against Gilbert Burns, which I think should have opened a lot of eyes as to what Kamaru Usman is really capable of, especially with another full camp with Trevor Whitman. But he really threw his hands for the first time. Kamaru Usman has widely been known as a guy who takes people down and he grinds you out. So it's the same problem that GSP had in the latter of his career, where people didn't want to give him his credit or give him his flowers because GSP, didn't always have the most flashy of fights. I think that's the problem that Kamaru Usman has, and that's why there may not be as many, as much noise about this fight. But even with that being said, having Weili Zhang in there, after the fight that she had with Joanna, and I could not be any bigger of a fan of Thug Rose, who very well could take the belt off of her. I mean, dude, you've got a banger of a card, but I just feel like, again, it comes down to styles make fights, and you got to make people want to see you. That's where that pro wrestling element comes in, and that's why when you hear people say things like, Conor McGregor does pro wrestling better than pro wrestling does, that's where that comes from.
And I can't argue that you do see it a lot in MMA now, where people grab the mic and genuinely are just cutting promos that you'd wish that you'd see in the wrestling world. It might help get a little more revitalization in the wrestling world, in my opinion. But that being said, as much as I love what Jorge is able to do and stuff on the mic, I honestly do. And I don't know if you were able to watch a press conference that they did today or not. But he was ripping on the mic pretty good. They had a good, solid back and forth. It was fun and it was entertaining and stuff. But I just got to see how the fight plays out, I guess. But at the same point, I feel like I already seen it because we did, and it wasn't that long ago. I mean, granted, Jorge was on a short camp and so on and so forth, but I don't know. I feel like Kamaru, like you said, that Trevor Whitman difference, man. I I actually think we really started to see the evolution of Kamaru Usman in the Colby Covington fight. I feel like that Colby fight was a real test of his wit, and
Oh, I agree.
the fact that he was able to go through a 5-round stand-up fight like that and still end up getting the finish in the 5th round was just it was truly next level stuff. It's the type of stuff that levels up a champ like that. He took a good solid chunk of time off, came back, had that first bout with Usman or Burns scheduled, but that's when the Masvidal thing happened, and it's just it's a. I feel like the evolution is really there in his game, and I feel like we might see another next level come Saturday. But I don't know. I honestly don't. I feel like Jorge does still have a chance, but
Well, he's got a chance because he can knock anybody out, and he's
yeah,
unorthodox. I mean, even though the man can box a little bit, he's not the most technically sound guy. That's why, that was pretty funny when I saw that Jake Paul, they said, was training a little bit with Masvidal. I'm like, what the fuck is Jorge Masvidal going to teach you and how to box a guy?
I mean, Jorge's got clean hands though. He's good with his feints.
Boxing hands or clean hands?
Well, we've never seen him with boxing gloves on though. So you can't say he's not good
Do you
at
think he
boxing.
could go in there and beat a boxer right now?
I think some of them absolutely. I do. Not maybe not. The Canelos of the world and shit. Obviously not. But I I think he could go in there
Okay,
and
so let's say situation wise. Okay, so you put him in a boxing match like Frank Mir did with Steve Cunningham. Put him in there with I don't know.
a
Insert
lesser known champion.
yeah.
Essentially.
Insert let yeah.
Okay. I think he'd be able to hang. I think it essentially would be the same type of thing we actually seen in the Frank Mir fight. I think he would throw off the champion in the first couple rounds, and then the champ would, start to go, oh, hey, this is boxing, the thing that I've done my whole life, so I should be able to win this fight, and then turn around in the later rounds. And because it's boxing, even if they win even if it's a half and half, they won't call it a draw. They'll call it for their own guy. So I don't know. Boxing's got a real grain of salt in my basket right now after the last week's shenanigans, I guess you could call it.
Well, let's talk about that though. So, something that's really been in the news ever since the payouts came out for the Ben Askren versus Jake Paul fight. And Ben Askren essentially said that he made more money in that one fight than he made for any one singular fight or his entire run while he was Bellator champion. So, my question to you is, do you think that, and we heard Dana say things along the lines of, oh, why don't you stop calling out MMA fighters? Why don't you fight a boxer? But dude, let's look at it. It's MMA guys who are calling him out. Tyron Woodley wants to fight him now. Henry Cejudo wants to fight him now. Like, all the MMA fighters want to fight him now. It's not even him calling him out at this point. So I guess my question to you is, do you think now that it's blatantly showing the blatant discrepancy in the pay differences between boxing and MMA, do you think that we could actually see a change in the pay structure? And do you think that this, shines light on an issue of why they need to change the pay structure?
See, I think I can't remember if it was Hayden that had brought it up or not, but I actually think if anything's going to change the pay structure, it's not going to be the fact that MMA fighters are calling out a YouTube boxer. I think what will change the pay structure, if anything, is the fact that the UFC is going public. I think that's what will have the bigger impact, whether positively or negatively. Because honestly, what I see happening a lot lately, and I'm sure a lot of the more hardcore fans are noticing this as well, is we're not losing the guys on the top, other than like John Jones and stuff who are pricing themselves out of the matches and stuff like that. But I think we're seeing a lot of the fan favorites, the Pettises and stuff like that, the people along those lines get released or let go or however you want to properly term it, so that they can free up another roster spot for a contender series guy that's making 12-12 for his first 3 or 4 fights. And that's what I think we're seeing a lot of now, is the fact that they're trying to lessen the payout, but not in the sense of paying people less. Like, if you've earned your spot and you continue to win and you show your worth at that spot, they'll pay you. Like, look at how long they paid Alistair Overeem for. I mean, granted,
I still feel like he kind of got a raw deal. The man was on a 4-fight win streak and then gets knocked out. Nope, you're gone. Fuck off. Like, fuck the fact that you won 4 fights and beat the guy who's now the number 1 contender and all that. And yeah, but you're gone.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I mean, I
I
understand the man's lost a bunch, but I just was like, wow, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, well, it's the nature of the business, man. It's so unfortunate, especially being a fight fan as devout as I am, and the fact that, like, hey, I seriously devote every Saturday, basically, at this point, sometimes a Friday or a Thursday, to watch all these damn fights. And it just sucks, man, because I know I'm not the only one doing this. And with the amount of fanfare that these guys do get, and media attention and stuff that it garners, you'd think that the wages would be increased. But like I said, I don't think that the calling out a YouTube boxer is going to change the salary. I think, if anything, it's going public. Maybe the perception of these fighters being underpaid will start to come in the limelight more once it becomes a publicly traded company. But that's all stuff we're going to have to see once it kind of plays out on paper, I guess.
All right. Well, let's get to this main card. And I know, for one, I may not be maybe necessarily overjoyed with the prelims, but the main card still interests the hell out of me. And it's going to make a lot of interesting noise as to where the UFC goes from there. So the first card fight that we have on the card now, these aren't necessarily guaranteed to be the order or whatever. That's just how they are off of the article that I'm reading to get the card, which is off of Fight Mag magazine. It says, according to them, we have, and this fight's going to be a really tough fight, and I've heard a couple people label this fight as a fight where it's going to be, a potential loser leaves town, but you've got Anthony Smith versus Jimmy Croot. What are your thoughts on that fight, Corey, and who are you picking?
First off, if somebody's saying, shit or get off the pot type deal in this fight, I do not think that's the case. Maybe so in an Anthony Smith situation, but I don't think so, just because of the simple fact that they have him working the desk so often. He does a lot of the UFC media stuff. I feel like he's a huge fan favorite, and the UFC knows it, even if he doesn't always pull off the win. But he's coming off a win in his last fight, so I don't necessarily see that being the case. And as for Jimmy Croot, I definitely do not see that being the case, because he only has one real loss in the UFC, and it was Misha Cirkunov, and he just got choked out early. So, if anything, man, I think this is a real either a continue to climb Jimmy Croot, you'll be up here one day, or a Anthony Smith, hey, it was nice having you in the top 5, but maybe we'll just have you float around the top 10. And that's what I honestly see out of this fight, win, lose, or draw for either guy. But matchup-wise,
fight, though, who are you picking?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Matchup-wise, man, I love the fucking matchup. I could not be more excited for that fight. It could main event a fight night, in my opinion, 100% of the time, and I would be completely content with it. I feel like Jimmy Croot doesn't get a lot of fanfare, as much as I feel like he deserves. He's a younger cat, but he goes out there and really performs. Anthony Lionheart Smith, one of my top 5 favorite fighters in the UFC. And of course, I'm going to have to go Lionheart in here. But you cannot count out Jimmy Croot in this. I actually believe he's a pretty big favorite, if I'm not mistaken. But
he is.
But my money would be on Anthony Smith. He's got way more ways of winning. I feel like Jimmy Croot's just more of a Jimmy the Brute Croot. is more of a brute and not always the most clean and technical with his abilities in the cage, I guess you could say.
So I'm a fan of Anthony Lionheart Smith. I have to go with Anthony Lionheart Smith because I like him, but Jimmy the Brute Croot is a very interesting fight because, man, that guy could come in here and really just put it on him. Even if he doesn't finish him, he could really just put it on him. And if that's the case of what happens to Anthony Smith, man, another loss may not look good for him. That being said, I think his experience is going to be what plays the difference in this fight. I think he'll be a little bit more crafty. And I think that can make the difference. I don't know how he wins, but if I'm picking somebody in this fight, I'm going to go with Anthony Smith.
I think Anthony Smith will probably pull off a submission. But my biggest concern, honestly, is watching that Anthony Smith fight against Glover Teixeira. I feel like the Brute's got a real similar style when he gets people on the ground, man. He's got real heavy top control and really rains down elbows and ground and pound. So if that ends up being the situation, watch out. Even though I'm saying Anthony Smith by submission, I feel like it's gonna be a war, man. It's gonna be a fun one.
So I got my fights mixed up. It wasn't the Anthony Smith fight that they were saying was the loser could leave town match. It's the Chris Weidman fight.
Yeah, that's I was actually going to make that point myself.
Go ahead.
Exactly like you said, because the fact that you had brought it up actually is that I love me some Chris Weidman. I do, especially when the man's on, when he is in the zone and focused and not getting touched on the chin and getting put to sleep. He is somebody to watch, man. He's exciting as could be. He goes out there and just puts it on people. He puts his pace. He's got clean hands. He's got good footwork and shit. He really works his takedowns in, mixes it up well. I just feel like his pace is going to be too much for Uriah Hall here, man. I feel like if Uriah Hall, unless he's really turned some kind of corner, which he hasn't been able to do his whole career, but if he really has somehow turned a corner more and since his Anderson Silva fight, I just feel like this is not a great matchup for him at all. Somebody who's got really, really, really good wrestling game, really good top control, but also is able to mix it up if you are able to keep him on the feet. So I just feel like it's not a good matchup for Uriah Hall in one bit. I feel like we might even end up seeing a finish from old Chrissy Weidman.
So I want to say all that because I love Chris Weidman, but man, he's definitely had something taken out of his step. I mean, there's not really any other way to put it. But you could say the same thing with Uriah Hall. And Uriah Hall, I mean, when he came off The Ultimate Fighter, was like, man, I think most people thought that he was going to be one of the next contenders in the UFC, and he just never was really able to get out of the starting blocks like that.
Well, he was supposed to be the next Anderson Silva, the guy he just beat. He was supposed to be the next one, and he just never came out to be him.
See, and that's the thing. I think Uriah Hall looked good, and he seemed to be mentally there in this fight. As much as it pains me to say it, I think I'm going to go with Uriah Hall on this one.
Really? See,
yeah.
One thing I want you to weigh in before you elaborate too much is the fact that Chris Weidman has been training in South Carolina with Wonder Boy for the last 9 months, or basically since the pandemic started. He actually moved his whole family down there and everything. He lives down there now. That's his main training facility, and he said that's completely changed his game because when he was still staying in New York, his only training partner that was his size in the gym was John Vellante. And we've seen how he looked in his last couple fights, and that wasn't very impressive. So I feel like this is going to be a different it's going to be
now that's information I wasn't aware of.
That's what I'm saying. That's why before you go elaborate, and I feel like that's an important thing, especially because of the fact of how similar Wonder Boy and a Uriah Hall could be. I feel like that's something definitely to weigh in on your pick.
Yeah. Now, with that information, man, I think I got to change my pick. I think I'm going to go back with Chris Weidman on that one. I mean, that could be a big difference, but I feel like this is going to be a lot tougher fight than most people are thinking. Because I think, like I said, I think Uriah Hall knows that he needs to get some wins, even though he beat Anderson Silva and essentially put him out of the UFC. He needs to get some wins. And either way, I think both of these guys need a dub more than anything.
Yeah.
But Corey, we're to championship time because there are a few championship title fights. In the first title fight, as listed in front of me, we've got Valentina Shevchenko defending her title against Jessica Andraj. I'm gonna be straight up on this one, bro. I think Valentina keeps her title. I really don't see anybody taking that title off her or even having a chance to take the title off her unless she fights Nunez again.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
I agree with you. I honestly do, but I feel like if anyone at all is going to pose some type of opposition, it would be somebody like a complete brute force like Jessica Andrade. What she was able to do, I mean, I feel like it wasn't a fluke because obviously nothing that you train and perform inside the octagon is necessarily a fluke. But that slam was partially a fluke. But the fact that she was able to win that belt, go in there, and then travel to China, ends up losing the belt to Weili, but then makes the move to the weight class that I feel like she should have been at the whole time. She might be the shorter one there, but man, is she a fucking powerhouse. What she did to Caitlin Chikagian with that body shot was just absolutely insane. Like she just touched her, and Chikagian just like had there was no recovering whatsoever from that. There just wasn't. You could see it in her face and just her whole reaction. It was just it shut her down. I feel like Valentina's a lot smoother than somebody like a Chikagian. It's going to be a lot harder to hit. But that being said, I don't feel like Andraj is no. She's not someone to necessarily just sleep on. I don't think this is a walk through the park for Valentina. I do think she retains. I think we still see the retaining champion and all, but man, Andrade is somebody to watch out for, especially now that I feel like she's not struggling to make weight as much. She's actually looked even like bigger now, and she looks bigger than a lot of these girls, like muscular wise and stuff at 125. So I would watch out if I'm a huge Shevchenko fan, which I am. I'm a huge Bullet fan. She's yet again this card's full of top 5 in the UFC fighters for me, but she's another one in my top 5. But I think she's going to retain. But man, just don't get hit by Andrade, please, please, Valentina.
I don't know, man. For me, I think Valentina Shevchenko keeps the title on this one. That takes us to the next female title that's on the line here. And this one is a lot more interesting to me. You have Thug Rose versus the champ, Weili Zhang. I'm going to go out on a limb here, bro. I think we could see a new champ.
Do you?
But I think this is going to be a banger. I think they're going to beat the living hell out of each other. I think we could see a new champ. And just for drama's sake and all that good stuff. And I mean, honestly, I think Thug Rose is one of the most well-rounded female fighters, period. So I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan of hers. I feel like technically she has what it takes to get it done against Weili. And if anybody that's durable enough to go through that kind of war with her, I think Rose would be the one to do that. So for me, I think we're going to get a new champ. I think Thug Rose gets the dub in this one. What are your thoughts on this fight, and who do you got winning?
I've been saying that all week in every single poll that I find anywhere that I can click upon and give my little 2 cents on. I think Rose is the one that's going to pull it off as well. Like you said, it kind of boils down to the well-roundedness of her game, in my opinion. And not only that, I know MMA math doesn't always add up, and honestly, more often than not, it just doesn't add up. But you look
They
back
don't
at
know how to do math in MMA, Corey.
no, I'm saying the fact that these matchups, even though both of them fought Joanna champion, Joanna Young Jacek, you've seen that Rose was able to do a lot more successful things against her, especially, of course, in that first fight where she was able to get the finish. But even in the second, where she was able to dominate, in my opinion, throughout five. And then you look at the Weili Zhang fight. Granted, in my opinion, I'm sure Joanna had leveled up a little bit in between those fights, but Joanna didn't. Joanna really held up against the Weili. That fight, in my opinion, could have been scored either way. Honestly, I feel like Weili was the rightful winner. Don't get me wrong, but it was a close fight, and we just didn't see that in the Rose fight with her. So, in my opinion, that's my biggest factor going into this fight is the fact that they shared a mutual opponent, and one of them not only fought the same person twice, but looked significantly better both times. So that's what's weighing into my opinion the biggest, other than the fact that, like you said, she's just so well rounded.
So you're going Thug Rose too. Well, what are your thoughts about what Joanna said in that pretty much if it's not a title fight at this point, she's not interested?
I really, really hope that's not the case because I'm a huge Joanna fan. She is the Boogie Woman is somebody that anyone that has been a fan of the UFC for a while should either be a fan of, either positively or negatively, but fan of. And she's just a monster. I really hope that's not the case. I hope we get to see more of her. I hope she just takes this like year and a half off to kind of reassess her career and life and direction. Even though that is her nickname is Joanna Champion, I'm more okay with Joanna Boogie Woman. And just go in there and do your thing, man. You don't have to be the champ. It's okay. You went up to 125. You weren't able to beat Valentina. You held the belt for an incredibly long time at 115. In my opinion, she should go down not only as a Hall of Famer for that fight with Weili, but a Hall of Famer in general for her career at the end of the day. So just go in there and have fun. Don't stress yourself on the fact that there's a belt attached or not. Have fun. The fans miss you. That would be my opinion.
I hear that. I hear that. I can see her point. I don't know who would be the next person that you put her in line with. If you have her fight somebody in the interim. It would be interesting to see who that matchup would be. I don't know who you would pick for that, but yeah, for this one, I think Rose Namajunas is going to win this one. I think Joanna isn't going to go too far from the title picture, even if she takes another fight outside of it. We're here to the main event.
Well, quick question before we jump off this Joanna factor. What weight class would you like her to come back in?
Honestly, probably 125 because the cut won't hurt her as much.
Yep. And I feel like there's a lot more interesting matchups for her. Like I said, she could play ping pong around that top five and make a ton of money and have even more fans at the end of the day, in my opinion. And I feel like 125 would be the perfect division for her to do it in.
I agree with you. Well, let's talk about another guy who's talked about not knowing if he really wants to keep doing it for too much longer in Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman is going to be taking on Jorge Masvidal, as we've talked about through most of this video. He said that he thinks that, there's not so many fights left for him and that he's interested in some crossover fights as well. So, Corey, what are your thoughts going into this fight, and who do you think is going to walk out with the belt?
Well, to lead on the point that you were just making with the fact that he's talking about possibly making an early retirement and stuff, I feel like the UFC always has a way of making contenders rise to the top. They always do, especially when champs are kind of making their slow steps towards the door. I feel like the UFC has a great way of making contenders rise, like they did with Burns last year. Um, that being said, though, I hope we don't see the end of Kamaru Usman anytime soon. Other than the fact, if that's what he absolutely wants to do, he's a great family man. I enjoy watching the videos that he puts out with him and his daughter and stuff. They always make me laugh and shit. But when it comes to the fight, like I had alluded to earlier, man, I just don't. I don't know. Jorge Masvidal has a real chance if he's able to circle out, not let Kamaru Usman get his hands on him, not back himself up against the cage like he always loves to do and almost have his back foot up against it the whole time. If he's able to defend a couple of the takedowns, which he did successfully in that first fight, that's one thing I really do give him credit for.
And he did that on 5 days' notice.
He defended the takedowns, but he didn't defend the clinch. That's the biggest thing. If he can somehow defend that clinch, find a way to circle out against somebody that, in my opinion, clearly looked like the stronger man out of the two, then I feel like he does have some chance. But even at that, I feel like Kamaru Usman, the way that he's his ability to mix his game up now that he's leveled up with Trevor Whitman and his striking is just kind of not. I don't feel like it's quite caught up to his wrestling game yet because he still looks a little stiff with his stuff, but his stuff comes with some real power now. Like the fact that he was able to put Burns out with that.
And his jab looked good too.
Yeah, well, it looked good, but in my opinion, it looked slightly stiff. It looks slightly stiff, and I feel like the more
at least he used his jab. So many guys in MMA don't even use the jab. So
I completely agree, but that's what I'm saying is that I feel like there's still levels to be had, and I feel like
but that was only his first fight with him too.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, let's see what he does in 2-3 fights, and I bet you that his stand-up continues to evolve. And for me, that's the big difference in this fight, and why I think Kamaru Usman is going to hold on to that belt.
Yeah, that ability that he's gained to just completely level up his striking it's going to be the difference in my opinion. I think we're going to see a Kamaru Usman that if need be is able to clinch, possibly take the fight down if he needs to. But I think he's going to be a lot more aggressive this fight, in my opinion. I really do. I don't think it's just going to be a control to a victory. I think he's going to go in there and try to actually hurt him a little bit, something we didn't see so much in the first fight.
Well, I definitely think he wants to hurt Usman or hurt Masvidal in this one just to prove a point. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to these fights. I wish they had maybe a little bit more hype on them. But either way, man, I think it's going to be a great card. What's also going to be a great card, if you're in Texas, there's a few tickets left, man. Make sure you're out there. If you're for our wrestling fans, May 1st, MPW locked and loaded. As I told you at the beginning of this video, tomorrow at 9 a.m., there's going to be an interview dropping with Marty Bell before she goes to war with, let me make sure I say it right this time, Alex Gracia. Hey, look for that pink hair. You can't miss her too far. You've also got to see, is Dave LaGreca going to survive Thunder Rosa? Is Dave LaGreca going to survive Thunder Rosa? Corey, what do you think? Is Dave LaGreca going to survive Thunder Rosa?
I have a feeling.
Do you think this plan works?
Even though this man has made a master plan, worked a radio show from the ground to Sirius XM, I do not feel like his wrestling plans are going to work out in his favor. I feel like Thunder Rosa has got the name in the industry for a reason. And the fact that the campaign has kind of led into shitting on Dave and his brand just makes it that much funnier, in my opinion. And honestly, no, I don't think so. I think his plan is going to backfire in one way or another.
Yeah, Thunder Rosa already has shown, like, she gives this many fucks. She gives 0 of them. If you watched that match with her and Britt Baker, you saw that on your own. If you can't be in Texas, on the Title Match Network, you can check out Mission Pro Wrestling. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out that interview with Marty Bell dropping tomorrow at 9 a.m. And until next time and in the in-between time, make sure you stay tuned and hit that subscribe button, because if you enjoyed our recap of this fight, we may have a very special guest for you come this Tuesday. Make sure you tune in, hit that subscribe button. Peace.